Welcome to Afterthoughts. This is our recommend or refute episode where we will tell you about something we recently watched and recommend it or refute it. Let you know if you should watch it or you shouldn't watch it. I'm your host, Ryan King. With me, we have our usuals, John Garcia.
Hello, Ryan, my dear friend.
Oh, God. He's still on it.
I just can't stop singing now. Oh, fuck, I can't really do this now. Oh, fuck. Oh, fuck. Anyways, I can snap out of it, folks.
Yeah,
it's not a medical condition.
Forsake you, John. We're going to forsake you.
I'm just trying to win an Academy Award in the year of our Lord 2024 for best podcast.
If you didn't listen to the High Noon episode, you're very confused right now.
Yes.
The other voice you're hearing is Michael Dixon.
What's up, guys? Interested to get into this and hear what you guys watched this week.
Yeah. Well, let's jump into it then, John. What did you watch that got High Noon washed out of your brain, I hope?
Oh, actually, High Noon came after this.
Oh, okay.
So unfortunately, but it is still powerful enough to sway me. And that was 1993's Dangerous Game, directed by Abel Ferrara.
His explorations of violence and redemption have shocked the world.
Urban nightmare! With the drugs, the infidelities, the alcohol!
Now,
I need the desperation from you, Frank.
from Abel Ferrara,
And I'm not about to bare my soul to nobody! Especially a God that doesn't exist!
the most controversial director in American cinema,
Because I need these things!
You're building up some kind of a war between you and the desperation.
comes his most sensational film.
On your knees to God. Tell him what you need.
I need these things!
Harvey Keitel, Madonna, James Russo.
I need these things!
Dangerous Game stars Harvey Keitel, James Russo. Primarily, those are the names you need to know. Oh, and a little, I don't know if anybody knows about her, but she's Madonna. Madonna's in it.
Oh.
Yeah.
James Russo isn't one of those Avengers guys, is he?
No, that's just one
Okay.
of the Russo brothers you're
That's
thinking
good.
of? Is that what
Yeah.
yeah. It's just different. But yeah, Dangerous Game came out in 1993, the same year as another movie with our boy Nick Cage, Red Rock West. We're not going to talk about it. Dixon didn't want to bring it to the table. It's fine. It's fine. Nobody wanted to talk about it today. But anybody out there, you should watch Red Rock West. It was pretty fucking good.
I will second that.
And Dangerous Game, it's one of those movies where the synopsis never prepares you for what the movie actually is. You need somebody to actually give you a little words caution here. And so I'm here to say, first and foremost, I recommend Dangerous Game. It's a very interesting approach to making a movie about making a movie. And I know everybody out there is like, oh, great. Hollywood making another movie about Hollywood. Here we go. Let's just start the circle jerk. But it's really not that kind of like meta cinema. Like it's not a Meet the Fablemans sort of thing. No schmaltz in it. It is about Harvey Keitel playing the role of, he's a director. His name is Eddie Israel. That's an interesting.
Okay.
And he's like a famous Hollywood director. Apparently everybody knows him, though you never really know that through the movie. And it literally just tells the story of him trying to make a series of scenes happen within a week in one of his films. Between Madonna and James Russo, who are playing, Madonna plays Sarah Jennings. Her character is this pop singer or a very famous idol of some sort. I have no idea what the correlation is to Madonna's actual career. God, I just can't figure it out. And she's trying to break into acting. So it's like double meta there. And then James Russo just plays a washed up actor who wants to get back into acting. And Eddie Israel is his buddy who's directing a film and thinks that he'd be perfect to play a broken man who is on the verge of either killing himself or killing his wife or doing a shit ton of drugs and having a great time. And the entirety of the movie is told through, there's no hand holding. There's no, hey, this person is, like there's not a lot of exposition. We just came from High Noon where everybody's like, I'm the sheriff of this town and I've worked here for 12 years. And God damn it, I've stamped all these letters for whatever. And you're just like, oh God, get over with. Here you get this mixed medium. So you get actual shots on 35 millimeter, and then you get interspliced like grain from like a handheld prosumer camera or something shot on like a Betamax or whatever. And it's behind the scenes stuff. So you'll see 3 different stories told. One is the actual film, where you're getting to see the actors do the scenes again and again in different ways. And then the other is Harvey Keitel as the director, Eddie Israel, in the behind the scenes when he's doing like table reads and they're sitting in his living room or somebody's living room. It's dingy in LA. And he's just like, this is what your character's motivation is. And he's trying to explain what he's trying to work through. And then the third story is the dissolving of Harvey Keitel's character, Eddie Israel's actual marriage, where he's like having affairs in LA he's hooking up with other characters. He's going to like crazy parties, but then he's got this like normal life in New York with a son who's like 7 years old and his wife who just kind of waits for him to get back to actually live with her and that kind of stuff. And it's told just in this disjointed way. If I could sum it up, kind of the main emphasis of it is him trying to work through this one scene. It's a breaking point between a man and a woman where the man's trying to really just lay out that he wants his own personal freedom, that he's too addicted to all of the vices he has in his life. And as on the nose as that kind of sounds, the movie doesn't really go too deep into trying to explore that. Like there's never a moment where Harvey Keitel drops to his knees and it's like, oh my God, the scene I've been writing all along has something to do with me. It is much more like, this is the struggle of an artist. This is just what art is. Like as a person, you're trying to render a feeling and you're not sure what it is until you're done rendering it. And like the horrors that could come out from that when you discover who you are after you've done something. And so I really liked it. I would say that I want to watch it again just to know if I love it. But I found it fascinating, just the way that it was told, the behind the scenes things. It felt like I was watching an extra, like a featurette on something that would have these like really killer scenes with really fucking phenomenal acting. Like Madonna killed it at times. And at other times I couldn't tell if she was intentionally throwing or what the fuck it was. Like I just kind of like straddles that line of like, I don't know how to rate this because the meta is so strong within it that at times the actors just swoop in and they fucking crush a scene. Then other scenes intentionally thrown. And then other scenes, I don't know what's happening. I have no idea how this is supposed to work out. So yeah, it was wild. Dangerous Game. Abel Ferrara.
Interesting. I haven't seen a ton of Abel Ferrara movies. I've been wanting to kind of watch more of his stuff, especially because he's worked with Keitel a decent amount. I like his work. I'm trying to think. There's a movie I saw of his a couple of years ago that was just like really impressively done, but like completely nonsensical. It was called The New Rose Hotel. And it was just like, there were a bunch of scenes that were shown multiple times, like not done, cut any differently, just shown again. And I was like, I'm not really sure what's going on. It felt very unfinished and like they just kind of had to get something out there, but it was a fascinating watch. And you could tell he was trying to do something really interesting. And I was having trouble understanding what he was trying to say, but I think he's an interesting filmmaker.
Yeah, I mean, I picked that. This is my first Abel Ferrara film, so I don't know anything about the rest of his style, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's one of those films that you can just soak in when you watch it. Like Sasha and I started watching it because based on the Blu-ray that I got has no description on the back. It just has really rad artwork all over. And I was like, it's got Harvey Keitel and Madonna. Sasha was like, yeah, throw it on. I was like, I think it's a thriller. It's called Dangerous Game. It's got to be some kind of thriller or some shit. And then it was like about the thrill of filmmaking. I was like, Sasha, I'm sorry. This is not the thriller I thought it would be. And she's like, no, it's fine. I'm actually like really enthralled by this. I really want to know where it's going. And then when it ended, she was like, what the fuck? Like, what was any of that? So like had her for a really good amount of time, like just invested. And then at the end it lost her because it really wasn't about what you thought it might be about. If you're just kind of coming into it fresh and from a more mainstream, you're not interested as much in like those meditations on art and on like the filmmaking process itself, like watching them do scene and scene again and try to get the motivation, watching the actors get frustrated, watching the actors act as actors getting frustrated was really just, it conjures that tension, that uncomfortable aspect. And I feel like it can give you a deeper sense of appreciation for what people go through on set to make a movie happen. And at times I was like, I don't know. And it also just throws you into those scenes too. They won't do like action or cut sometimes they will. And so you kind of like get disoriented pretty easily watching it, but in a way that makes it even more engaging and enthralling. So.
Yeah, I was going to ask about, like, it's, he's a cult director, I would say. But he's worked like, it is one of those things where I think it's funny, like, how does he keep getting work? I think it's because he can work on such a low budget. But he worked with Keitel multiple times, Christopher Walken,
Willem Dafoe. He's worked with a lot of interesting actors.
And I think like Bad Lieutenant is the one that comes to mind for me that Harvey Keitel's in. You should check that one out for sure if you like that.
I've been wanting to watch that.
Dixon mentioned that to me.
Yeah.
Because there's another Bad Lieutenant or a sequel?
Yeah, there's a sequel called Bad Lieutenant Protocol New Orleans, directed by Werner Herzog and starring Nick Cage, and I haven't seen that either. Like, oh man, I need to watch both.
What is that? Yeah. Now I have to know what that is.
I assume it's a sequel. I don't really know, honestly. Maybe it's just completely unrelated. But.
We've got Nick Cage to do the movie.
We are shooting in New Orleans.
Yes. All right, so that's it. That is a recommend.
That is a recommend for Dangerous
worth
Game.
A check out. It is something different though. Is what you're saying?
Yeah,
be warned.
If you go into it, it's not a conventional story. So,
yeah, that's interesting about Madonna, because she's hit or miss in my book. There are times where I'm just like, oh yeah, like I'm very pleased with her. And so this would be interesting.
Fresh off watching Purple Rain with Prince, I was like, oh great, here's going to be another musical act that fails this movie. And yeah, she knocked it out. She did a good job.
Nice.
Yeah, sounds good. Dixon, what did you watch?
Cool. Yeah, I am going to talk about the 1966 film Seconds, directed by John Frankenheimer.
Hamilton? Yes?
Listen very carefully.
I've been assigned to go over the circumstances of your death with
I have a gentleman here who wishes to leave the building.
Isn't it easier to go forward when you know you can't go back? Begin again all new, all different. Doc, it's a masterpiece.
I'm Nora Mars.
I'm Tony Wilson.
Ultimately, we'll be called to face the Creator and render up our last account. It happens to all of us, sir.
There never was a struggle in the soul of a good man that wasn't hard.
As soon as these people leave, I'm going to attack you.
Why, Mr. Wilson, you dirty old man.
Starring Rock Hudson and John Randolph. You may recognize John Randolph from Christmas Vacation as Chevy Chase's father.
Hey.
And also there is a side character played by Murray Hamilton, better known as the mayor from Jaws.
Nice.
So it's got some interesting actors in it. It's a fascinating premise. This is a kind of sci-fi paranoia film that is almost kind of like a Twilight Zone episode, but just really well done. John Randolph plays a, kind of aging banker who is in a loveless marriage, and his grown daughter doesn't really come around anymore. He sleeps in, him and his wife sleep in twin beds in their master bedroom, and he is clearly not happy with his sex life, and kind of bored at his job, and he thinks he can maybe become president of the bank if he keeps putting in some more work, but he's not really sure if that's going to get him what he wants in life. Then he starts getting these weird phone calls. He doesn't know what they are. And actually, the opening shot of the film is this really cool handheld camera, long tracking shot following John Randolph through this train station as he's going home from work. And he steps on the train, a guy grabs his shoulder, hands him a piece of paper, and just walks away. And he opens the piece of paper and there's an address on it. He's like, what in the world is this? And so he's getting these phone calls at home also from a man who claims to be his friend from college that he played tennis with. And they won some sort of tennis championship together. And John Randolph was like, dude, you got to stop calling me. My friend is dead. Like, you're not him. Stop pranking me. I don't know what's going on here, but like, you got to stop calling me. And his wife knows that there's some weird things going on with these phone calls. Then his friend calls one night, and he's like, he basically proves to him that he's his friend. He tells him some stuff that like nobody else would know about their relationship. And he's like, okay, what's going on here? He's like, that address that guy gave you today? You need to go there tomorrow at noon. And so he's very confused. He's not really sure what he wants to do. The next day he's at work, kind of, sitting at his desk, rejecting a loan application, and he's clearly hating his life. He's like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to go to this address and see what happens. He shows up at this, I think it was a laundromat, and they're like, he's like, I'm here because I got an address. And they're like, oh, they're not here anymore. You got to go to this other address. And he goes to the other address, and it's a meat packing plant. And he's like, what the fuck is going on? And he finally talks to somebody like, oh yeah, you're here for the thing. All right. And he takes him to this secret other location. And turns out this whole thing is an elaborate kind of staging thing for a new radical illegal business where if you want to fake your death and start a new life, this company will do that for you and give you plastic surgery, give you a new face, say, oh, what do you want to do with your life? You want to do something else? You want to be a painter? Great. We'll set you up in a new house, fancy, rich neighborhood. We'll give you some paintings that you can start selling while you work on your own artistic style, and you can start a new life. You can cut complete ties with your old family and go do your own thing. And so John Randolph decides to do this and wakes up from surgery as Rock Hudson. And
okay.
Rock Hudson, a really great performance by Rock Hudson. I think, most of his career is, kind of these rom-com type of things that he's not really able to kind of show his talent as an actor. He's incredible in this movie as this very conflicted person who is trying to figure out how to live a new life and come to terms with that, and to be comfortable with the new face that he's seeing in the mirror, and trying to establish this new identity and figure himself out. Things get even weirder from there, and I don't want to spoil anything else from there, but that's kind of the premise of the movie. It's very much an indictment of 50s 60s suburban America, and capitalism, and the idea that you kind of just have to work a job for your whole life and find happiness through a nice suburban house and wife and kids and all the things that you're supposed to find happiness in. And whether it's possible to find happiness in that, or if you're not able to find happiness in that, are you even able to find happiness at all in other scenarios in life? If you just started over, could you even be happy if you crafted the specific life that you wanted for yourself? Or is there something wrong with the human condition to where we just can't be happy? We can never be satisfied with what we have. We're always going to want something else. So, I think the movie is fascinating to watch. It's shot in black and white. It's really great cinematography, a lot of canted angles and some fisheye shots. And they're trying to do kind of a really interesting vibe with the movie. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. Would highly recommend people checking it out. If you like sci-fi, horror, thriller kind of stuff, it's like kind of toward the end of the studio system. You see they're starting to allow some things that maybe they weren't in years prior. But really interesting movie.
Well, yeah, talking about vibe, you had mentioned Rock Hudson was in, mostly rom-coms. And I know you watched Pillow Talk recently. I did. That's a pretty fun movie. I mean, I
enjoyed it. It was fun, yeah.
What is the general tone of this film? Because you talked about horror, you talked about being sci-fi. Is there still are there cliches within it? Are there things that like Rock Hudson is now like really handsome and he's given this, a Rock Hudson thing to do with like, here's a woman that would love you, Rock Hudson, but throwing like conflict into that? Or is it completely different, like a total departure from things that Rock Hudson does in like rom-coms or more charismatic roles, I guess?
It's a total departure from anything that I have seen him do before. He's having to play like a 55, 60-year-old man in Rock Hudson's body and kind of dealing with the jarring nature of that and trying to adapt to a new lifestyle, trying to deal with the deception that he feels he is putting out into the world by doing this and covering up his past life and all these things. And it's a very internally conflicted performance from him that is just very, very different than anything that I've seen him do. It's not like he becomes Rock Hudson and then he's just like getting all the ladies and
he's like Nutty Professor sort of.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I've seen some of Frankenheimer's other stuff. Manchurian Candidate, the original one, is the one that comes to mind, for me. And I know that he had a very prolific career. I think he did push more and more as the studio system kind of went out. So definitely interesting to see. Supposedly this is the movie that like fucked up Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys.
Oh really?
Shit. This fucked Brian Wilson up?
He came into the movie late, and I guess a character said, "Come on in, Mr. Wilson." Was a line in the movie, like while he was walking in the theater, and then the ending of the movie, there's like beach and beach imagery or whatever, and he was like convinced that it was crafted to taunt him or fuck with him or something, and so he canceled the next Beach Boys album.
Well, you know what they say, Ryan, God only knows.
Yeah, Rock Hudson's character's name is Antiochus Wilson. So he must have come in very late to the movie if he only showed up when, John Randolph is out of the movie entirely at that point.
Sure, he's Brian Wilson. He can show up whenever he wants to.
Yeah. I'm sure it was just the movie that was messing with his head.
Yeah. Definitely nothing else.
Nothing else. Well, cool. I watched Inside Out 2.
This is Joy, coming to you live in Riley's mind. Make some noise! Sadness is in the house! It's anger!
Let me at him! We gotta get our mouth guard, people!
Fear! No, that's not ours! Disgust. Glad to have her on our team. Our little girl's growing up so fast. Ow. Sorry.
It should be nothing but smooth sailing from...
Hello? I'm anxiety. Where can I put my stuff?
A new emotion.
Oh, I'm sorry. We wanted to make such a good first impression.
What do you mean, we? I'm Envy. Look at your hair. Oh, yeah, not happening.
That's on we.
On what?
It's what you would call the boredom.
What's your name, big fella?
That's embarrassment.
Welcome to headquarters, embarrassment. Oh, we're doing a fit. No. Oh, nope, going high. Oh, you got a real sweaty palm there, buddy.
I finally got to go back to the movie theater. It's been a hot minute. We've been like too busy, but we managed to get out to the movie theater as a family and see Inside Out 2. I know it's my family was definitely looking forward to it. They really liked the original. It's been quite a long time like that since that one came out. So that was what my wife was asking of, like, if you were a kid when you saw Inside Out, the first one, like, you're a lot older now. Are you wanting to go back? And then you're aiming this at kids who haven't seen the first one. Like, it's kind of interesting when Pixar decides to make sequels and not. Obviously with Cars, they just fucking wanted money.
Yeah.
But
like,
I really was
more like Incredibles, right? Where they made it like, 10 plus years later.
Yeah, even longer apart than Inside Out. Yeah, I kind of was going into it then with that premise of like, okay, why do we need a sequel? Or what are we doing that's interesting in a sequel? And if you've seen any of the like posters or previews or anything, like they're like, oh, there's more emotions. So my other question was like, where the fuck were those emotions in the first movie when we saw inside everyone else's and a cat's head and saw the core 5 emotions we always see?
Mm-hmm.
I think the movie actually does a decent job of, at least kind of answering that second question of the emotions that it introduces in this one when Riley, who's the girl that we follow her emotions from the first movie and in this movie, hits puberty. All these new emotions show up that she kind of can't handle.
Is there a
and they're
horny?
kind of do what?
Is there a horny emotion?
Yeah, it's a lot of people ask why there wasn't a horny emotion. Yeah, it's somewhere back there, I guess. Maybe it didn't quite hit her yet. Though there is a
Pixar
bit
didn't have the
spent
balls to do it. That's why.
Yeah, there is a bit spent on crushes, and she does have like a Mount Rushmore of crushes in her.
That's funny.
In her imagination land or whatever. So there is at least a hint towards the horny emotion,
towards
I guess.
Boning.
The emotions they introduce are kind of mainly the like shitty emotions. So they kind of introduce it more of like those emotions as you like get older, you're able to kind of like put away and like they can show up, but you sort of like can put those away. And they also have an emotion of nostalgia who like comes out a couple times and they're like, no, you don't get to come out until we're way, way older. And so it at least introduces the idea of like, oh, there are other emotions that like they come in when they need to come in, but the 5 core simple emotions are still the main driver. Off the top, I will say, I think that it's a worthy successor to Inside Out. And if you liked Inside Out, if you really did kind of resonate with the like emotions and the way that the movie was representing someone going through like a tough time and how the emotions kind of play with each other and the sort of like growth in understanding how you can't just like shove everything down and like events in your life maybe can be seen multiple ways, and your emotions you kind of have to embrace even the like what might be a traditionally like sort of negative emotion.
Mm-hmm.
This movie kind of continues that into like some more complexity. Like it does sort of take it beyond the just simple like you can be sad and that's okay. That kind of honestly is like the first movie.
Yeah.
And really pushes into this like, what about more mental health? It doesn't out and out say mental health, but I think you can really take that away from this movie. It's obviously there, like the undertone is there for sure. This really isn't about puberty the way that it seems to be. In the movie, like the red light goes off for puberty and they come in and all these new emotions come in. But it really, the main core driver is the new emotion, anxiety, kind of takes over and pushes the other emotions out and then literally bottles them and throws them into the back of the head. Which I do feel like initially I was like, oh shit, that's the same. I hate when a second movie does the same thing, right? Of like, oh, we're get rid of an emotion and then now we don't have to deal with it. Like that was the first movie and that's also this movie. Mm-hmm. But they at least did like something different in like what they're trying to do and how they're getting back. Like I'll give it that credit.
Are they just trying to find their way back to headquarters again, just like they were in the first one?
Yeah, pretty much they need to get back to headquarters, but this one works around the idea of self and that we get a lot more time with Riley. It's actually probably like 50% seeing what's going on with Riley and 50% inside the head dealing with the emotions. Where I think the first movie, Riley is there, but you mainly spend time with the emotions. You don't really hear her say much or do much. Like it's much more limited and you mainly see Riley through the emotions' eyes. This one really is like, oh, Riley's a character, walking around doing things. She has her storyline that we're following. She has new characters, new friends that we're introduced to. And she's going off to hockey camp and finds out that her friends are going to go to a different school. And at the same time, she's under pressure to try to be successful at this hockey camp so she can get onto the high school team, and wanting to continue in that career. And it pretty much leads up to a panic attack. Like she has a panic attack and that's like symbolized in all of like the emotions being pushed out and anxiety taking over and how she kind of changes, treats her friends differently, like what she wants to be. And so the core driver is that you start generating a self, and like the emotions that are like your most important get thrown down in this like well in your head, and then those start to form together like a tree that is yourself and like your definition of who you are. When anxiety comes in, she grabs the self and like chucks it out to the back of the head and starts throwing like all the anxious memories down there and redefining the self. And so that's kind of the core, is like they're actually needing to, they get bottled and thrown out, but they could immediately get back. But instead they're like, oh, we have to go get the self that was the original one and bring it back and fix everything. And actually Sad gets sent back immediately to try to like, they also need her to do something with the board so that they can get sucked back up in the vacuum and returned. So they do kind of like follow the characters a little bit different, like they have a little bit different going on.
Yeah.
I don't ever think it hits the like emotional highs, I would say, or moments that are like the cheap tear jerking moments that the first movie does. But I still think it hits like good emotional resonance. If you can connect with the character, the going through something like this that's troubling and you're not quite sure what to do, especially as a kid, or if you deal with mental, health issues and have panic attacks, like all those kind of things. Pretty much like what anxiety says, what anxiety does. The self like has this, it kind of like talks when you touch it. So like every once in a while, like Happy goes over and like flicks it, and or like looks at the memories and like can pluck them as like guitar strings, and like the memory like has Riley say something like what she learned of it, how she's like defining herself. And the same thing happens when anxiety throws down like the shitty emotions. And so there's like, I'm a good person, right, in the original one, but then anxieties is like, if I do these things, people will see me as a good person. Or like, I need to do this in order to be a good person, right? Like sort of like the real like negative thoughts that you can be having, instead of just like being okay with yourself. You're like defining yourself by these things outside of you and having to try to attain
motivators.
Yeah, really externalizing a lot of stuff. So I think like, I'm like, if you like the first one, you'll like this one. I think it's good. It's maybe not excellent Pixar. It's probably better than some of the recent Disney outings and some of the recent Pixar outings. So kind of a going back. There's not really anything that's like new animation wise. That's also another thing that I feel like I miss. Pixar used to always push something new. It feels like Disney in its movies tries to push something new technology wise, but I really didn't catch anything here I felt like was a new technology push, which is kind of disappointing.
Yeah. Feels kind of like Disney's been trying to funnel more of the technological and like craft of what Pixar established into the Disney brand, so that they can eventually just be like, Pixar doesn't really exist anymore.
We don't need it anymore.
We're just going to kill this and everything will be Disney. You'll come to us for all of it. Star Wars, animation, Song of the South, it's all there.
I would imagine that Inside Out is also a movie that is difficult to do interesting animation in. Is like the first movie is so simplistically animated, right? You have these characters who are not very complexly designed and just kind of like single color backgrounds, kind of like there's not a lot of interesting things to work with there. Like, I mean, they could have decided to make it more in depth and more difficult to animate, but it felt like they were kind of just giving the animators a break. Like, to me, like when I saw the first Inside Out recently, didn't care for it. I was like, I was bored with the animation, and also I thought that it was just so frantic, and like I felt like the emotional moment at the end of the movie didn't feel earned. Like, it's just like, we're running around with our hair on fire this whole time. Like I think the Joy character felt like anxiety to me in that movie, and she's just kind of freaking out the whole time. She's so worried about everything, and she's not actually joyful. And then the movie ends like, oh, we get this great moment of bittersweet whatever, and I'm like, I don't know, I didn't really feel like that was earned. It was like
they create sweet, nostalgia.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't like. Would I like the new movie if I didn't like the first one?
No. If you didn't like the first one, it's kind of the same thing here. And I will say, one thing in Joy like breaks down and cries at one point in this one, which you kind of bring up. I'm like, it's not quite clear how the emotions actually work because they
Yeah.
aren't
Yeah.
The
like
other
fully
emotions
one-dimensional.
seem to actually be just that emotion. Like sadness is only sad, anger is only angry. You know,
They like
and-
trend towards that. Yeah, and then you have to actually have the script kick in.
Yeah.
Like you need the
Yeah.
characters to actually talk about something because they can't be as two-dimensional as the actual label that's applied to them.
In this one, they vaguely kind of say that you have like one emotion that's your like main emotion. And so then that one seems to have like more power and kind of like drives the table a little bit more. And for Riley, it is joy. And so maybe that's like why she's more complex. It's like anger for her dad, which is kind of weird. But it, like, I mean, they do try to like represent the emotions, not necessarily negatively. Like, I do think that's one of the things Inside Out and Inside Out 2 try to do is like, yeah, even though it's like anger, disgust, or fear, you might think are like bad things, they do serve a purpose. And they do kind of get to like anxiety is kind of like, it also sort of serves a purpose, but if you let it run rampant, which is the same thing if you just like push down all your other emotions, but like letting something like anxiety run rampant is a whole lot worse than like just trying to be happy all the time. Like there's a bigger difference there.
Yeah. Ryan, would you be more so like we're talking about right now, the kind of one of the problems that causes a little confusion here is when you try to personify something, you can only carry the metaphor so far before you get stuck in these paradoxes of like your joy. How can you feel anything but joy for the, so what we're talking about instead is that her name is Joy and she just happens to be the resident employee who is charged with upholding joy.
Keeping that up. Yeah.
And would that have been, I just am now getting twisted up in Ryan would hate this. Like I can see you sitting in a movie theater seat while I try to explain this in some kind of script. And you're like, well, that does, fuck, where does that come from? How does somebody show up and her name's like Rutherford and she's in charge of anxiety? What the fuck? Where did she even get her name from then? And like, but like it's that Osmosis Jones problem. Which is a movie I love to bring up, where it's like you really just don't know. The metaphor is surface level fun, and then beyond that, you're like, this doesn't make any. I don't know how this is going to keep transferring.
Yeah, no, it has to be simple and straightforward enough for kids. Right. Yep. At the end of the day, this is a movie for families, and so it does have to be simple enough that a kid's like, oh, I get it, joy, sadness, and they're not necessarily bothered by this. Like, they're not literally that.
This nuance,
right? But then we have to make some things that are complex enough for the adults that are sitting there to like enjoy it and see something in it too. And so, yeah, you kind of have to balance that. I think it's probably a fair interpretation to be like, oh, no. Joy, it's like, it's their jobs and it's the emotion that they mainly get.
Yeah.
Right. But they're a little more complex than that. Not too much more.
Yeah. They trend towards those things, but they don't embody all of it. Got it.
Interesting. Ryan, who is your favorite voice actor in the movie?
Chris Pratt.
He's not in this one.
He's in everything.
Yeah. Honestly, I always really like Lewis Black. I'm always fucking enjoying him as a comedian.
It's hard
and I do think that he's exactly what you're supposed to have to be anger. Like, I think that's just like a perfect casting. So I think I'm still probably props on.
I love his
Lewis
old rants on the Daily Show when he would just yell for 7 minutes straight about something that he was old man crotchety about.
Yeah, exactly. He still has one of like the best comedy routines I think of all time, where he talks about the 2 Starbucks across the street from each other. It's just, that's amazing. Like, go look that up. I just fucking love that bit of his. They do recast.
I wanted to ask you about this. Yeah.
Yeah, they recast Fear. And maybe one of the others. I know
they recast Fear from Bill Hader to Tony Hale, and I was like, Tony Hale is a better casting, but also it seems weird to me that they wouldn't invite Bill Hader back, or that Bill Hader would have turned that down. So yeah, I don't know what the story is behind that.
I was interested in that.
Barry or something. I don't know.
Maybe, but it's like you come in and record lines for 2 days, and you get paid $1 million. And you go home. It seems like I'll do that.
And Bill Hader loves doing voices, so I don't like right.
Yeah.
Like, that's fucking what he likes to do. I don't really know what happened there. It would be interesting to find out. Tony Hale is the right fit for Fear. I kind of need to sit down and listen to him back to back. Like, I had that thought walking out where I was like, I didn't necessarily like notice that it was different. Like, they did kind of the right job, but but I could still tell, like, I know it's Tony Hale, but I'm like, that is the right person for it, though. And, like, yeah, so I need to listen to him back to back.
Buster Bluth is just fear.
Right.
Like, he's just the embodiment of fear. Yeah.
I saw they also recast Disgust from Mindy Kaling.
That was, I was thinking that, was it Disgust recast?
Liza
Yeah.
Lapira, yeah. Which, I have nothing really to say about that. I've heard there's controversies around Mindy Kaling. I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, I don't know that either.
I had no idea.
Who knows?
So.
You're recommending it then?
I do recommend it. Yeah, the only thing they did, like, vaguely animation-wise, and I don't think this is, like, new animation, but it was one really funny bit where they go into, like, the vault of things Riley doesn't want to think about anymore, is where anxiety shoves them. And there's, like, a Cloud Strife from Final Fantasy character in there that she, like, had a crush on when she was a kid, and then also, like, an absolutely clearly Dora the Explorer knockoff that she can't get rid of. And they're animated differently to fit, like, the animation style of where they came from. And so there's, like, that fun little bit of having the, like, 3 different animation styles, like, next to each other.
Yeah.
And then the Cloud Strife character, like, clips into the wall when he's trying to walk out.
Nice.
And I always fucking love that.
Good gags. Awesome.
Yeah, cool. All right. So I think that's a wrap with what we have. I am recommending Inside Out, too, if I didn't say that. I do recommend it. I do really, really recommend the first one, Dixon. I'd be interested. We could talk at length about why you didn't like it. But I do recommend it.
It just felt very simple to me. Like, I felt like the character, I mean, of course, the characters are very broad. They're just representing emotions. But I don't know. I had trouble getting into it. And I felt like, I feel like a lot of times where Pixar falls short is when, like, they usually have these big emotional scenes at the end of movies that work really well. But if the rest of the movie doesn't properly build to it, then it doesn't land successfully for me. And I think sometimes, they just don't do the rest of the movie well enough to justify their big emotional scene at the end. And that's kind of how I felt about this one. What was that fucking movie with the blue people that Chris Pratt was in that came out during Onward? That one. I was
Onward.
The ending scene is so good and so emotional, so powerful, but the rest of the movie's ass, And I didn't really care. That's kind of how I felt about Inside Out.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
Probably also because you scored a 0 on your love test or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, I did. I
definitely the cause.
Enneagram personality test that I have a 0.0 out of 100 on the loving person. So
you got sociopath.
Yeah, I do think they kind of use cheap tells in Inside Out, and probably in this one too, to kind of get their moments. Now, the more powerful moment in that one is when the imaginary friend eats it.
Oh yeah, that scene. Poor imaginary friend.
Richard Kind.
Yeah, Richard Kind.
Yeah.
I was wondering if I imagined him. Yeah.
All right, so round Inside Out. I'm saying Inside Out 2 is a recommend. John says Dangerous Game.
Yeah, Madonna and Harvey Keitel, James Russo.
And Dixon says Seconds is a recommend.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Rock Hudson, John Frankenheimer.
Rock Hudson is world. I tried.
One of our few full recommends all the way around. I've been your host, Ryan King. With us as always,
John Garcia. I'm so glad I can not sing anymore. I just don't have to.
You can if you want to, John.
I could if I indeed wanted to.
It's gonna come up for him tomorrow in the middle of something. Like he's
I'm gonna be singing it when I walk anywhere now. It's just gonna, man. Thanks, High Noon.
What we need to do is we need to get like a little tiny like recorder that plays randomly and like hide it in his house.
Yes.
God damn it!
Way off somewhere so he kind of hears it in the distance and thinks he's just hearing it
at very low volume.
Yes. Yeah. And also joining us,
Michael Dixon. Thanks for putting up with our bullshit.
You singing.
Hey there, movie buffs, TV toughs, and all listeners in between. John here from the Afterthoughts podcast. I just wanted to drop in at the end of this episode and say thanks for listening. If you've got afterthoughts of your own to share, hit us up. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at The Afterpod, or jump into a conversation on our Discord server. You can find info for this and more at theafterpod.transistor.fm. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.